A long, long time ago, there lived a young boy named Daniel. He lived in a beautiful city called Jerusalem. Daniel loved God very much. He learned all about God's promises and how to live in a way that made God happy. But one day, a powerful king from a faraway land called Babylon came to Jerusalem. This king was named Nebuchadnezzar, and his army was very strong. They captured many people from Jerusalem, including Daniel and his friends. They were taken away from their homes and everything they knew. It was a long and frightening journey to the grand, bustling city of Babylon. Once they arrived, Daniel and his friends were chosen to serve in the king's palace. They were to be taught the language and customs of Babylon. The king wanted them to become wise and strong so they could help him rule his great kingdom. Everything in Babylon was different. The buildings were enormous. The people worshipped strange gods made of stone and gold, and the food was rich and unfamiliar. It would have been very easy for Daniel to forget his home and his God. But Daniel carried his faith deep within his heart, like a precious treasure he would never let go of. Even though he was in a strange new place, Daniel remembered the promises of God. He knew that God was with him, even in Babylon, far away from the temple in Jerusalem. The king ordered that Daniel and his friends be given the best food and wine from his own royal table. This food, however, had been offered to the false gods of Babylon, and eating it would be breaking God's laws. Daniel knew he had to make a choice. He could either obey the king and disobey God, or he could stand firm in his beliefs, even if it meant getting into trouble with the most powerful man in the land. Daniel made a brave decision. He decided he would not defile himself with the king's rich food. He wanted to honor God above all else. He politely spoke to the official in charge of them and asked for a simple diet of vegetables and water. The official was worried that the king would be angry if Daniel and his friends looked weak or unhealthy. But Daniel trusted that God would take care of them. He knew that honoring God was the most important thing he could ever do, and he believed with all his heart that God would bless his faithfulness, no matter what the consequences might be. Daniel made a promise to God in his heart. He promised that he would always remember him and follow his ways, no matter where he was. A very important part of keeping this promise was talking to God every single day. This is called prayer. Daniel had a special routine. 3 times every day he would go to his room, open his window that faced toward his beloved hometown of Jerusalem, and he would kneel down to pray. He thanked God for his goodness. He asked for wisdom and strength, and he prayed for his people who were so far from home. This was his special time with God. As the years passed, Daniel grew into a wise and respected man. He served several kings in Babylon, and God blessed him with great skill and understanding. The king saw that Daniel was different. He was honest, hard-working, and incredibly wise. Whenever the king had a difficult problem or a confusing dream, he would call for Daniel. God would help Daniel understand the dream's meaning, and Daniel would give the king good advice. Everyone in the kingdom knew that Daniel was a man who was close to God. His daily prayers were not a secret. They were a well-known part of his life. Daniel's faithfulness was like a bright light shining in the palace. He never tried to hide his love for God. His habit of praying 3 times a day was a public declaration of where his true loyalty was placed. It wasn't just a quiet, personal ritual. It was a testament to everyone around him that he served the one true God, the God of heaven. This dedication made him stand out. While others sought power and favor from the king, Daniel sought guidance and strength from God. His prayers were the source of his wisdom, his courage, and his peaceful heart in the middle of a busy and often chaotic palace life. This consistent habit of prayer was the foundation of Daniel's strength. It was like an anchor for his soul, keeping him steady no matter what storms came his way. He wasn't praying because he wanted to show off how religious he was. He prayed because he truly loved God and needed to connect with him. It was as essential to him as breathing air or drinking water. This deep, personal relationship with God, built through years of faithful prayer, would soon be tested in a way that Daniel could never have imagined. His simple act of devotion was about to put his very life in danger. One day, a new king named Darius was ruling over Babylon. King Darius liked Daniel very much. He saw how wise and trustworthy Daniel was and planned to make him the ruler over the entire kingdom, right under the king himself. This made the other high officials and governors very jealous. They did not like that Daniel, a man from a foreign land, was so favored by the king. They looked for a way to get Daniel into trouble. They watched him closely, hoping to find some fault in his work or some mistake he had made, but they could not find anything at all. Because they could find no fault in his work for the king, the jealous men decided to use Daniel's faithfulness to God against him. They knew about his daily prayers. They knew he would never stop praying to his God, no matter what. So they came up with a wicked and cruel plan. They went to King Darius and flattered him. They suggested he make a new law, a royal decree that would show everyone how powerful he was. The law would state that for the next 30 days, no one in the entire kingdom was allowed to pray to any god or man except to King Darius himself. The king, pleased by their flattery and not realizing their evil trick, agreed to the plan. He signed the new law. And according to the laws of the Medes and Persians, once the king signed a law, it could never be changed or cancelled, not even by the king himself. The jealous officials were overjoyed. They had set a perfect trap for Daniel. They knew that Daniel would have to choose between obeying the king's new law and obeying his God. They felt certain that Daniel would continue to pray, and then they would have him right where they wanted him. When Daniel heard about the new law, he knew he was in great danger. He understood exactly what the other officials were trying to do. He could have chosen to pray in secret, behind a closed window, where no one could see him. But Daniel was not afraid. He knew that his first duty was to God. So, just as he had always done, he went to his house, walked up to his room, and opened the windows that faced Jerusalem. He knelt down and prayed to God, giving thanks, just as he did 3 times every single day. He chose to be faithful to God, even if it meant disobeying the king. As soon as Daniel started praying, the jealous men who were watching rushed to tell the king. "Daniel is disobeying you," they exclaimed. "He is praying to his God against your royal law." King Darius was heartbroken. He realized he had been tricked, and he cared for Daniel deeply. He spent the entire day trying to find a way to save him, but the law could not be changed. With a heavy heart, the king had to give the command. That evening, Daniel was arrested and taken to a dark, deep pit filled with hungry lions. It was a terrible punishment, meant for the worst of criminals. Before Daniel was thrown into the pit, King Darius spoke to him. His voice was filled with sadness. "May your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you," he said. Then Daniel was lowered into the darkness of the den, and a huge stone was rolled over the entrance to seal it shut. The king was so upset that he could not eat or sleep all night. He just worried and hoped that Daniel's God was powerful enough to perform a miracle. He waited anxiously for the sun to rise, hoping against all hope that his trusted friend would somehow still be alive when morning came. At the first light of dawn, the king hurried to the lion's den. His voice trembled as he called out, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve so faithfully, been able to save you from the lions?" He held his breath, fearing the silence. But then, a voice called back from the pit. It was Daniel. "O king, live forever," he said. "My God sent his angel, and he shut the lions' mouths. They have not hurt me because I was found innocent in his sight. Nor have I ever done any wrong before you, O king." King Darius was filled with joy. He commanded that Daniel be lifted out of the den immediately. When Daniel was brought out, there was not a single scratch on him. He was completely unharmed because he had trusted in his God. The king then made a new law, declaring that everyone in his kingdom must respect and fear the God of Daniel, for he is the living God who rescues and saves. Daniel's bravery and unwavering faith showed everyone the power and love of the one true God, proving that it is always right to be brave and trust in God, even when it is the hardest thing to do.